Hello and welcome to another Tech Campus Coffee live webinar. This is an opportunity for you to learn about career paths at Tech directly from professionals in your field.
We'll be speaking to technical representatives from a variety of fields at Tech, and they'll share why they enjoy what they do.
Participants also have a chance to directly ask speakers and recruiters questions and get a good understanding of why Tech is a great place to work, as well as where your strengths, talents, and learning opportunities lie. Today we have two geological engineers from our Line Creek operations. It's Taidhg Mulroy and Kate Burnham. And maybe we'll just, Taidhg, maybe I'll get you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure, yeah, I'm a geological engineer at Line Creek. I've done a few different things since I started at Tech in 2018. I kind of started in more of a pits and spoils role. And so the spoils being what we call waste dumps in coal, but doing a lot of the in-pit engineering and design reviews there, inspections. Since then, I sort of transitioned more and focused on now the tailings and water dams that we have on site and managing those in terms of the requirements with the regulators and also just our best practice and how we function with those day to day. Another fun feature that we have at Line Creek is that our access road goes through a canyon that has, I think the last count, there's 6 different varieties of geohazards along the 4 kilometers of road. We've got rockfall, debris flow hazards. So part of what I do, and Kate as well, now she's at site, is that we are managing the hazards through there for workers and people on the road. We also have a conveyor belt that takes coal from the pit to the plant, so it's a constant access through there. So a lot of hazard management is sort of where we specialize in this.
Great, thanks, Taidhg. And Kate, same question for you.
Yeah, so I started off with Tech as a student, and I had 2 terms here in sort of geology focused roles in a couple of different capacities at the Oakview and Greenhill sites. And then I came back full time in 2019 to work more so in line with what I studied as a geological engineer at their Cardinal River operations. And I stayed there for just over a year as the operation transitioned into closure. And then since finishing up there, I managed to move back to the Elk Valley and worked at Oakview as a geologist briefly and have just transferred over to Line Creek a couple months ago. So I'm back in geological engineering role again, looking at more of the pits and spoil stuff that Taidhg was mentioning. And yeah.
Great, thanks. All right, so at this point, I'm just sort of typing a message in the chat there. So we want to encourage students to ask their questions. We have an opportunity to talk to some relatively recent graduates who are now in full-time careers in geological engineering. So feel free to type it in the chat or to raise your hand.
If not, I can jump in and ask a couple of questions. I got a couple in my back pocket here if you're interested while people are sort of thinking theirs up or typing them in. But I guess and maybe we'll start with you, Kate, just because you spoke last. But what makes you excited about the next few years? I know there's been a lot of changes on the geological side of things, and especially on the tailings and those areas. But maybe talk to us a little bit about what makes you excited for the next 5 years of the future of Tech.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good support right now across lots of the sites for sort of improving things and adopting a lot of Race 21 ideas. And Line Creek's an exciting place to be because there's a lot happening right now in terms of variety of experience that you get in your career as we're looking for some of our pits to ramp down and go into closure in the near future and also have some new pits beginning to get developed. So it's nice to be able to see both sides of that and get to work with everything at once. Just because as an engineer, it's presents different challenges. So it's nice to be sort of in one site, one role, but get a wide variety of experiences and still have an environment around you where people are pretty supportive of change and continuous improvement and always adopting newer, better ways to do stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Great. I know there's a question in the chat here, and maybe I'll throw something to you, Taidhg, that there's a difference between, what's the difference between geotechnical and geological engineering? Because I know sometimes they do overlap.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on sometimes what a role is titled. Like for example, at Tech, we're calling ourselves geotechnical engineers, usually the role description, but especially when you're working in the pits, you're dealing with like massive rock faces and the rock mechanics involved in that. So the geological side of it that you'll sort of see in school, where you're looking at the rock geology and how that affects, rock strength and the performance data. It's really a combination there. So I think almost depending on the job, and certainly with the in-pit stuff, I think that they could be interchangeable with Teck.
Okay, and then I think there's another question here. So maybe if you could give us a time, Taidhg, if you could tell us a little bit about how much time would a person in your position spend in the pit versus in the office?
Yeah, so obviously with COVID, things changed a bit for working at home, but I think so. What I try to do now is I'll be at home maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and then when I'm on site, almost those whole days are spent outside doing inspections, or visiting facilities. I think that if you're on site, it's very easy to be outside every single day, and depending for a couple hours. I mean, even driving around in the pit, I think Kate can attest to this. It's not a perfect traffic pattern at all times. So even going up to look at a certain spot might take you the better part of an hour. So I've never found that while I've been here, I've felt like I'm stuck in an office. I'm out in the field a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess to add to that, Kate, maybe you can speak to this from your co-op experience, or even I'm sure both of you have probably worked with co-op students, but how much would a student then spend in the pit versus in the office? Is it similar?
I spent a lot more time in the pits as a student for sure, but I was working different roles that were certainly a lot more pit focused. When I was working at Elkview, I was doing a lot of downhole geophysical logging and sort of coal quality support, and then a lot more pure coal quality work and supporting the exploration program throughout the summer. So when I was working shift work, I would be outside for probably at least 70 or 80% of my 12-hour day doing coal quality. And then when I was supporting more the exploration program and for a lot more of the regular geotech work that I do, it's a pit tour, it maybe takes 2 or 3 hours if you're being pretty thorough on everything that you want to go chase. And then depending on the role and depending on what the needs are outside, because a lot of the time you're supporting either contractors or operations and helping them get a better understanding of what needs to happen for geotech out there. Could be every day, or it could be a couple times a week.
Okay, great. I'm just going to keep trucking through the questions here on the side, if you guys are cool with that. Someone's asked, were there certain streams of work that you were interested in? Did you end up in a role relating to that? If not, how did you get into your current role? Maybe Taidhg, do you want to talk to that one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I took a bit of a different route. Like after graduating, I went up and worked in consulting engineering in the Arctic. So I got a lot of different experience up there, and definitely exposure to working in mining in pits, and then also dealing with dams. So I had a lot of different exposure, and then coming back to Teck, it was nice to get really into some of the major large scale rock mechanics and pit work. But I think now that focusing more on tailings and dams, I just sort of ended up there, partly because it's an interesting field that you're seeing a ton more focus on now, with obviously in BC, let alone the rest of the world, global tailing standards are being developed. There's a lot more focus, and there's a lot of area for that to grow. So as Teck as a company is increasing its capacity in there, there's a lot of opportunity. And so it's interesting, and you're dealing with dam stability, with foundations, with depending on the type of facility you're looking at, piles and run out. There's a lot of variety in what you get to do in that. So it's kind of been where my career has tracked, but there's a lot of really interesting work to do there. So I'm pretty happy with its direction.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I've seen lots of opportunities from a recruitment standpoint within the geotechnical, geological space for sure, and we're seeing a huge increase in numbers from a full-time perspective. So it's nice to see lots of different opportunities. Great. Okay, and then someone else has asked, what are some of the roles that students would have in geological engineering with Teck on site or in the office? I know we sort of touched on this a little bit, Kate, but maybe if you want to elaborate a little bit on some of the projects that you worked on or a student could work on. I don't know if either one of you guys have had students of late.
Yeah, the last time I would have had a student would be our geologist at Cardinal River, which was a while ago. And she wound up supporting a lot of the geotech work that we did as well. But a lot of what the student work looked like for both my time at Elkview and Green Hills and what we had our student do at Cardinal was definitely a lot of time in the pits and a lot of supporting coal quality, particularly more of the geology related roles, whether that was from geophysical logging or stockpile sampling and collection, or just walking coal cuts with operators to make sure they understand what's happening with the geology and how we can go about best recovering it. And then the other sort of big thing that I got to do as a student was support the exploration program, which looked a lot like going out to the drill rig every day and doing safety and sampling audits and lining up contractors to build new roads and lining up operations to help support that when we move back in the pit. So it was a lot of good sort of project management adjacent experience I got there, but all of it's been really beneficial in terms of getting given a good level of responsibility and a lot of time out in the field and really starting to work with operations and understand how it all sort of comes together in reality.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, they get to get some pretty exciting experience. I know moving forward here for the next May term, I have 3 geological positions that are coming up within the coal business unit for co-op students for 8 months, and I'll speak to it a little bit later. But some of the work that they get to do, talking about slope stability and getting exposure on that side, and then even the rock mechanics side. Like there's quite a variety. They really get to sort of see what all aspects and how challenging our work environment can be, and what sort of hazards we're managing on a daily basis. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Someone's asked about the co-op program. So, I'll speak to this a little bit later, but we do have a summer student program, and we have mostly operational roles for the upcoming summer. So we've reduced our program just a little bit, just so we can manage numbers at the operations, considering we're trying to reduce as many as we can. There's none that are for a month right now that are geological engineers specifically, but certainly we do have some 8-month opportunities if someone's available to make themselves do 8 months anyway. So just to give you insight on that one. And then now there's another question here. Can anyone from any department join Race 21? Okay, so that was more of a race specific. Hi, Tony. So can I assume Race 21 is a fairly flat organization? I don't know if I'd speak that way. I think right now where we're at with Race is that, and I won't get too long-winded on it just because I want to make sure we get into the geological side of things, but Race has been doing a lot of senior level hiring right now. And now we're moving into some more of the operational race roles, but we haven't hired as many junior people yet on the race side of things, and only because we want to get all our sort of senior people in place first before we can be able to support some junior level people. So just a quick note to that. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Tony. And
I think I just add that, it's in terms of structure, they're more flat than the rest of the business, that's for sure, in terms of organizational structure. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. All right. So someone's asked here, and that could be for either one of you, but was there something about working at Teck that was surprising? For example, work culture, diversity and opportunities, etc. Maybe Taidhg, do you want to speak to that one? Anything surprising?
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, it was like I came to site with sort of a specific, like I'd be working the pits and spoils, but what really ended up being the surprise for me is just the variety of things I got to do outside of that. Like, Line Creek specifically has the canyon that is sort of no other site in the valley has anything quite like that. So the work that we have going on there is, it totally changes what you're looking at. And so getting to, do heli flights every year to look at the high mountain geohazards, it's pretty awesome to be doing that. And then, just looping in, so we have, one of our ponds is a former pit, so it's turned into a lake, and so you're looking at dam stability, but also you're still looking at how, if you had an instability on the wall, what would a wave look like coming out of that? So the variety of work that you get to do just within the geotech field has been great. I think that's what I've been happiest with.
Great. Yeah, thanks. And Kate, do you want to add to that? Is there anything that was surprising for you?
I mean, I went into my co-ops initially just not knowing much about tech or mining or where I'd be relocating at all. So I was pretty pleasantly surprised to find out that Fernie and the whole Elk Valley was a really great place to live in general. It was one of the really big reasons why I wanted to come back full time, because I really enjoyed living there in the local community, and it just led to a really good lifestyle in terms of the work balance, and it was a lot more appealing to me than some mining fly in fly out locations or other sort of remote areas where people get similar quality work experience.
Yeah, I often ask people about that, and it's only because I think all of us are pretty excited to talk about where we get to live. So I guess, what do you guys do for fun when you're not at work? What do you get to do in this good mountain background that we have here?
Kate, you want to start?
Sure. I've taught myself how to mountain bike pretty recently, so that's been lots of fun over the summer, but has involved a couple of crashes. That's all right. Similarly, I've taught myself how to ski this winter. I used to be a pretty strong snowboarder, but I've decided that Fernie is a bit more of a skier's mountain, so I have to make the switch, but also has resulted in a couple crashes, but it's all been pretty fun so far. But summer, winter, it's always good stuff to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Like the mountain biking is, world class here. There's fly fishing is amazing. Yeah, like Kate said, the hill is fantastic, and there's another great hill just about an hour and 20 minutes away over in Kimberley. So to get a different style, it's not like it's a big trip by any means. And then yeah, in the summer, the hiking and just living in the mountains and everything that comes with that, it's a pretty great spot.
Awesome. Yeah, I know we can probably talk about it for a long time about all the fun stuff we get to do, but I think we're really lucky we get to, similar to what Kate had mentioned too, you don't have to fly in, fly out, and really not have a connection to the community. The communities here are really great. So not only do we have the recreation, but obviously I live in the area as well, so I don't know if people have caught on to that part, but but yeah, it's really special to be able to see sort of how tech has impacted the communities, and we get to live and have a lot more amenities in these communities than most small towns would have, and it's because tech has been here and sponsoring a lot of the community centers and different, like our Nordic Center, all these other things that we have that a lot of small towns don't get to have the benefit of. So it's pretty fun to live here for sure. Someone's asked about EITs. I think you posted, Misaki, did you, about EIT opportunities that we have? Did you?
So I took a look, and there's just the one that I can find on our site currently for geological engineer. There's a chief geotechnical engineer, which I don't know if anybody on the call is going to qualify for. But I guess the main thing is we post our positions based on need. So I look at it this way: we have positions for EITs for sure. We have positions for all of you. It's just a matter of not if, but more a matter of when. So we've got a lot of we'll have openings all throughout the year, and so just the main thing is just keeping an eye on the postings, and also some of the positions, as you can sort of see the one I just posted. It's got race 21 attached, so it's going to be different than a traditional site one. I haven't actually looked at the description, but one of the things is just to be wary for all of you is we use certain terminology interchangeably. Certain roles, as Kate and Taidhg had sort of mentioned, like the geologist and the geological. Like there's so I guess the main thing is to take a look at the descriptions, and sometimes certain positions, like the title of the position may not be what you're thinking, or a certain position, the title may not attract you, whereas actual the description would. So it gets it's a little tricky. So anyways, but long story short is we have a ton of positions we're looking to fill. It's like whack-a-mole. And we fill some positions and more pop up, and we anticipate a lot of positions throughout the year.
Yeah, for sure. I think with a lot of the movement, you guys could probably speak to that too, but you're probably seeing a lot of movement within the geotechnical, geological space, with new initiatives coming from the tailing side of things, especially, that we're definitely going to see lots of new opportunities, and already seeing them creep in. I know I was helping out on staff recruitment recently, and that was one of the roles that I had been working on. And yeah, I mean, you guys can sort of congratulate yourself with the people who are on the call for picking a really great discipline with some great opportunities for future. They're very, it's a very sought after position. They're really hard to find a really strong geotechnical, geological engineer. And I can speak to that just from the experience I had trying to find a really senior one of late. So kudos to all of you guys for picking a really great discipline to go into. Okay, and then I guess, we've sort of we talked about race a little bit at the beginning. We've had some questions around race. So I guess if you guys could maybe talk to us a little bit about any technologies that you're seeing coming out, or that you've sort of been using over the past little while that you think is going to make a bit of an impact in your particular discipline. Maybe, I don't know who wants to start. Maybe Kate, do you want to start? Or Taidhg?
Sure. Do you want to go, Taidhg?
Sure. Yeah, I can think of a couple off the cuff here, but yeah, one of the Misaki mentioned earlier, drone survey capabilities and what we're doing with that. Even so, from the tailing and dam structure side, like just being able to fly drones for inspection, like you're still walking it, but getting the drone pickup as well, you can generate surfaces from that, and you can start to look for trends in deformation, and just the ability to get a ton of data over a massive area so much faster, so much more easily, and then you can start to do more comparisons over a lot of time. With that, it really helps to add value there. And then also, I think another big one that we're looking at right now is INSAR monitoring. So effectively, it's satellite version of a drone survey, so even larger areas and can be even more detailed data. So and Line Creek in particular, satellites, you get kind of the optimal INSAR comes from east-west alignment. So a lot of our pits are sort of fit that description. And so having the INSAR capabilities potentially to look at that, and you can spot any sort of signs of deformation at very, very minimal scale before you start to see it in inspection or cracks form or whatnot.
Right. Anything else you want to add to that, Kate, or did he steal your thunder?
No, the INSAR is a really exciting thing, I think, for everyone coming up. But yeah, I think as a student, I didn't really have an appreciation for how much monitoring is like a really critical part of working as a geological engineer. And there's definitely a lot of room for new developments all the time. Like we're always getting a lot smarter with how we're using our data in terms of responding it or automating bits and pieces of it. And there's pretty big improvements every year with the stuff that we're doing, I would say. But yeah, the INSAR is like a pretty glitzy thing that we get to start doing lately, which is nice.
Everyone likes the shiny new toy, hey? Awesome. And then I guess when you're thinking about the students or even new graduates, someone that's coming into the field now, is there any sort of skills from like a software standpoint or any sort of technology skills that they should come in knowing or would be beneficial for them to know coming in?
I don't think I touched Power BI in school, but it's starting to really come into the workplace. So it'd be nice to have better experience in that. But yeah, really strong Excel skills is always something that helps, and having any sort of understanding of like coding languages and the general logic in that, so you can kind of teach yourself new software and how to use it as it comes up, has been really helpful.
For sure. Yeah, Power BI, it's like the new, it's definitely been exciting. Everybody seems to be using it now. And I don't know, maybe if you could give a brief description. I know I can sort of talk to it, but I probably wouldn't speak as intelligently as maybe one of you guys to explain exactly what Power BI, because I've got a lot of people on the call maybe have not had exposure to it yet.
I've managed to mostly avoid it in a geotech capacity. It's mostly in geology roles where I've had to fiddle with it a bit. But yeah, I would loosely categorize it as really smart Excel. But yeah, it's sort of like pivot tables on steroids in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Excel's the future.
That's how I explain it too.
Yeah, Excel's the future, and you can you can present the information a lot more effectively. Is a quick summary, I guess.
Yeah, nice dashboards and that sort of thing. Hey, yeah, for sure. Great. There's a couple of recruiting type questions there, Masaki, that
you want to cover the well, we have so Sydney's talked about can civil engineers get into the geological engineering positions? So maybe they're not all geologicals on the call.
Yeah, and I think sometimes if my understanding is correct, Sydney, some of the civil engineering courses, you can do like a specialization in geological engineering within the civil degree, I guess. So I think I have hired them, I know, from a student capacity. And again, I sort of spoke to how difficult it is to find a strong geological engineer that can sort of tick all the boxes that you're looking for. And so I've definitely wandered out to the civil side of things and hired people within that space. I don't know if you guys know off the top of your heads, if you could think of any, are there some civils within the group that have that geological sort of specialization? I know we tend to hire a lot of geological, but
yeah, definitely within the tailings and dams role, like there's a lot of civil engineers who kind of take the geotech side of that discipline, and then heading into tailings and dams is a really common move there. So a lot of the, like both in and outside of tech, a lot of dam engineers that I work with have civil backgrounds.
That's a great point. HVC, same thing at the Highland Valley copper operations and outside of Kamloops. We got some civils in the tailings group there.
Great. And someone's asked here some qualifications that we'd be looking for in like a resume when hiring geotechnical engineering students. So I know we sort of talked a little bit on it in terms of any sort of software experience, but in terms of technical experience, having some exposure to some of the instruments that we use are definitely an asset if you've had some exposure to that. Obviously, getting some survey courses under your belt certainly help as well. I'm trying to think of really for us, from a student perspective, especially, I look for people who have got some hands-on experience in the past. So, so any sort of experience you've had where you maybe worked with your hands, worked out in the pit, work in the field, certainly that's an asset on your CV to sort of be considered for roles with Teck. All right, and then I think we've got another question here. Is everybody online here? Is that okay? We're good? Just lost some visual. And I think you're on mute, Misaki, sorry.
Stephanie's asked about open. Like, I guess she's got questions about open pit and underground. So she's got experience underground. I don't know if you guys have experience. Kate and or Taidhg, do you have experience on underground? And if so, do you see the difference, I guess, between the two?
Kate, I don't know if you want to.
No, I haven't worked underground, so I can't speak to that.
I've never done a lot of underground, but when I worked in consulting, I did a little bit, just some projects. I was never, in the shafts, but I think overall, like the underground, a main difference is that you're developing, especially from the engineering side, a really, really solid understanding of some of the rock stresses and pressures and how the mining affects that. So obviously, when you take away 2 of those 4 sides of the mine to go open pit, it's a little bit simpler, if anything. But yeah, I think having that background is really, really useful because generally I've always thought that the underground can be a little bit more complex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know that we have like a small percentage of underground. I don't know if you consider it underground, but I've heard from Elkview Operations, we have a tunnel that runs underground. So I think managing water and such through the Elkview tunnel, where we have basically just like a conveyor that goes to this tunnel. So I think there might be some overlap in terms of water management from an underground perspective with respect to that tunnel as well. There's a little bit of overlap there, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, they got some really cool new instrumentation in there this summer. I managed to do a big tour of the tunnel and walk the whole thing up a fairly steep slope before I left Elkview for Line Creek. But yeah, it's its own strange little world in the tunnel.
I know. I think as like open pit geologists and geological engineers, it's definitely a little bit unique to have that little piece sort of at our operations. But it definitely someone coming from underground would probably relate to that quite well.
Yeah, it's funny as well how different all the sites are in terms of their pits and some of the different characteristic problems you run based off the size or the rock quality across the different areas, even though they're all pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Line Creek, it's really good to have some structural geology background or just knowledge.
Yep.
Awesome.
That segues nicely into Rebecca's question, which is how much exchange or integration is there between the Elk Valley sites with the larger Teck company? What are your thoughts on that? Like that's a good
I've
question.
Worked at 4 sites already, so
Yeah.
I would say a lot probably from my own experience.
And I think as well, like the geological engineering group within Cole is really, really good. It's a community of practice, and the relationships between the sites are really strong. So I know when I started, if I had questions, it was really easy to be asking Fording River or one of the other sites in the valley for help on things that were coming up, and then so like or going there for a day to tour something that they're seeing more that we might get, or just to pick up a skill. Like I got some training in WellCAD, so logging geophysical data from one of the Fording engineers, and then I took that back to Line Creek. So I think as a whole, there's really good integration between the geotechnical community of practice. The opportunities are really solid there to build those and then potentially switch around sites going forward.
Yeah, and to speak to like that larger Teck company, we've got some great resources across Teck. So I know when working with some of the geotechnical, I'm doing some recruitment for them, and they talk about working with the Vancouver team, where we have a group of professionals that are very knowledgeable in our operations and also just in the geological space. They're experts in their field. So we have those resources to pull on as well, which is a huge asset for the company for sure, especially with, like you said, all the changes that have been happening of late. That's really puts Teck, I think, a step ahead in a lot of ways, because it offers us that knowledge base that we don't always have. Maybe at each operation there might be new things coming out, and they have that resource to pull on, which is awesome. From some students that we had this past summer and maybe the term before that had worked in sort of the geological space at Teck, and it talked a little bit about the kind of experience I got, because I think I could probably talk about it until I'm blue in the face, and it definitely means a lot more coming from students. And obviously we've got Kate here who has come from student into full-time professional, and for us that's exactly what the program is all about. She's sort of the poster child of what we want to achieve with our campus recruitment, is really building a strong talent pool through co-op, and then and then hopefully bring the strong performers up to work full time for us. And that's a great tool for us, and a great experience for students too. And so this talks a little bit about the different experiences some of the students had. And like I mentioned earlier, we're doing recruitment now for the May co-op term. So you'll see our postings on our website are currently posted right now. And I'm looking for at least 3 geological engineers for the upcoming term to work at our coal operations. And I know for the other operations, they don't have anything posted right now. I think there's some mining roles at Highland Valley Copper, but I haven't seen a geological engineering one as of yet. If anything should change, we'll certainly add it to the list. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. They're 8-month in duration for the most part, or we could do 12 months as well. And you get to work with some great professionals and learn a little bit about what it means to be a geological engineer on the ground at the operation. So it's pretty exciting for us. I'm just going to say, what else do I want to talk about? Yeah, I think that pretty much covers like the gist of what I want to say. And then otherwise, I know there's some people who are looking for new graduate positions, and Masaki spoke to that a little bit earlier too. But just to remind you, for new graduate EIT type roles, we recruit them for an ongoing as needed basis. So you can keep an eye on the website and you'll see postings. And sort of the joke that we have, and I know Masaki, you had talked a little bit about it earlier, is that sometimes they might not be called what you would traditionally call it. May not be just geological engineer. It might be tailings professional, dam specialist. Like, there's lots of different terms that we may use within our industry. So it's definitely worthwhile for you to sort of take a peek at the website, keep an eye on it, monitor the type of roles that are coming up so you know what to keep an eye out for and what they're called. And then you can set yourself up for job alerts as a new graduate. And then you'll get pinged when something comes up that's targeting like a geological engineer, say, for example. So, and it makes it a little bit easier for you, but it's good to do a little bit of homework and research into what we typically name those types of roles. I think someone's got if we could just mute there. If anyone has any questions, we've got a couple of minutes left. You can certainly type in the chat or put your hand up.
While we're waiting for questions, the other thing I'll mention is, we really appreciate you attending. And just the one other thing for you students is we'll spam you a little bit later with an email because we want to get your feedback. It's a short survey, but the main thing is we want to make sure we're providing value to students, and the best way to do that is to hear from you. And if there's other things that you want to hear about in the future, there was some interest in sort of geology, for example. Well, we could easily put together a campus coffee more on geology versus geological engineering, or however you'd like it. So let us know what you want, and we will build it.
Awesome. Right, and then I think Lucas put the survey link in the chat too if you want to access it that way. If not, Masaki will send it off to you.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's it. And Masaki, I don't think there's any other questions popping up.
Yeah, awesome. Well, last call for questions. Otherwise, we can shut her down. Oh, I see. Is that a hand up, or we have some technical issues sometimes? I think I see a hand up.
I do. Yeah. I think it was.
Hi.
Lisa.
Yeah, I have a question.
Hi.
So what are some expectations you guys have for student positions or co-op students at Teck?
In terms of performance, you mean, or in terms of getting the job, like before you?
No, like what are some things that we're expected to do at the job?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, from a general standpoint, I could speak to it, and then maybe Taidhg, I can get you to jump in. But I know from a co-op perspective, from a general sense, I could say that you come in, you're eager to learn, you want to get exposure to as much as you possibly can, you're likely going to do well, and you want to. So you're taking on lots of work. You're really being a help to the group and the department. And so you come in with the right attitude and that motivation to learn. You're going to get a lot out of the work term. We provide experience to our students that really offers a good variety, and if there's areas of interest that you particularly want to get some exposure to, then having those discussions with your supervisors definitely helps your case in terms of making sure they know what your interests are and that's saying you can dictate sort of what you do, but certainly that helps with that conversation around the kind of experience you'd like to see and get. From a day-to-day perspective, I don't know if you maybe, Kate, do you want to speak to how did you land this job? What did you do in your co-op that impressed somebody so much?
That's a very good question. Apparently they liked me, so I got to come back. I definitely found that my co-op experience was pretty real jobs, so to speak. Like it wasn't exactly like a make work, busy work, let's have another body on the team and this co-op can shadow people or get thrown whatever is too much for someone else who's full-time plate. Like at Elkview, it was a pretty designated role that the specific responsibility for logging these holes like stopped and ended with you. And it was gonna be your duty to make sure that that got done, or else it was going to be a bottleneck issue for production and there'd be consequences. And then similarly, like at Green Hills, there were sort of vacancies that came up where I got to step in and do coal quality for the winter and then go support the exploration program for the summer because they'd had some people promoted out into other roles. So it was definitely not like a sort of traditional student job in some ways, where it was really meant to keep you busy and show you things. Like they were pretty real roles and responsibilities where you were expected to perform and be a part of the team. But yeah, lots of working with all kinds of different people from operations and contractors who have a different background than most of us, coming from school and higher education, and then also collaborating with all the different engineers on site and geologists, like lots of different people to sort of work with and lots of time outside and some pretty important responsibilities that you're pretty accountable for.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and we do a survey with all of our students as they're leaving, and I think that's literally the most common the common feedback we get from our surveys from our students that are departing from their role is, I can't believe how much responsibility I was given as a co-op with Teck. So that certainly rings true when you said that. It certainly makes a lot of sense, because that's definitely something we see commented on quite a bit. And they say about how much they were able to learn. They never imagined they could learn that much in an 8-month term. So I think that makes it really great for the students.
Thank you. Sorry, my chat isn't showing up for me, so I had to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome. All right. I think I have one more question off to that I got just privately from a candidate. I'm not sure if they're still on the call, but they couldn't access the chat either. So they were just asking if they're usually in a 4-month sequence for their co-op, and they wondered if we could do 4-month opportunities as a co-op. And they are limited, unfortunately, and only because I think it's such a similar to what Kate has alluded to in terms of her experience, it's such a big adjustment to come in for 4 months. You're literally just getting your head around the opportunity, and then you have to leave. So we really do rely heavily on an 8-month to 12 months. So you may see a 4-month opportunity on a rare occasion, but for us, majority has been 8-month terms or longer. Have been more that we've leaned on of late. Any other questions there? Masaki is still there?
Yeah, I think there's a question from Mohammed I missed here, but it's more for you, I guess.
Okay.
There's a specific software for refining the CVs, or I guess resumes, which I'm not aware of one that actually we would recommend, but I don't know.
No, not necessarily. We have an applicant tracking system that we track all our resumes and make comments, and like if someone's had previous experience kind of thing, so we could track someone's application history. We can do sometimes what's called a questionnaire, basically, and there's part of the questionnaire as part of the co-op application. But we don't necessarily have a software, like we don't have any AI tools that some companies do use to sort of target certain resumes. We don't go through that. We do it bit old school, that would go through all the resumes and make sure that everyone's getting like considered and looked at. So it's certainly a bit old school. The questionnaire can sometimes, if someone says, like, if there's a certain thing that's a deal breaker for a job, like driver's license is a big one for a lot of our opportunities, because you need to drive in the pit, that sort of thing. So if someone said they didn't have a driver's license, then that would likely just move you right to rejected. But other than that, we go through all the resumes.
I think we've exhausted all the questions out there. Well, yeah, unless there's anything else any more that come in, I just want to say thank you to everybody, for Taidhg and Kate for being our guest speakers, and Stacy and Fluka in the background there. And thank you to all the students for attending. Like I said, we'll stand